should Julio Jones be drafted in Tampa Bay? That and so much more on tonight's episode of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. Troy, go ahead and start us off. Where should Julio be drafted?
I like you when you called him Julio.
Julio Jones, yes.
Okay, so I just listen, y'all. I just looked at where he's going, or he's currently ranked, right? So this is Football Guys ADP. Look, it's a consensus, right? So wide receiver 87 right now. He's up 7 spots. So I think like Julio Jones, he's just a role player at this point. Last year, he looked okay in the games he was healthy, but obviously he's been struggling with injuries recently. I'm not going to tell anybody to do anything crazy with Julio. If you want to take him with like your last pick or something, cool, just to take a shot, fine. But I'm not super excited about Julio again. We know the pieces you want in the Bucs roster, and then Julio, again, if he could somehow rewind the clock and look like Atlanta Julio, fine. But I have major doubts on that. So if you want to take a shot on him late in drafts, fine. But I'm tempering expectations on the Julio return.
So I guess a better question, because Victoria, I'm assuming you're not going to say, hey, we should be going out and drafting Julio in the first round. So maybe a better question than where should he be drafted is, how does he impact some of the other players on his team? And we could all talk about that a little bit, but Victoria, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, Russell Gage, Cameron Brate, Cade Otton. I mean, how do all of these guys get affected now that Julio Jones is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer?
I put out a tweet yesterday saying I really hope y'all are not adjusting your Mike Evans wide receiver rankings with this Julio Jones news. Now, I also kind of feel the same about all these other pieces. Like, it didn't really move the needle on Evans for me, and typically really anyone else. You can go the avenue and say, sure, they lost Gronk, they lost Antonio Brown, they lost Ronald Jones, LOL. They won't have Chris Godwin at 100% to start the season. Most likely, even if he starts week 1, I assume he's not, superhuman. He just had that surgery in January, I believe. So I don't know. You could make that argument that he affects them somewhat. I'm not moving any of the guys. Maybe I think I moved Gage slightly because he's going way too high to begin with right now. And Tom Brady spreads the ball around. We know that. I looked up a stat earlier. The total share of touches not returning from last season from those pieces I said have left, it's not that high. It's around 30%. But I still see Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, Russell Gage eating up those targets or, that target share that has left. I'm not moving the needle too much. And the tight ends, you're taking your Cade Otton, you're taking those guys with your last picks just because they're not Gronk. You can't just expect those guys to be Gronk. I haven't moved the needle too much on any of those guys. And Julio, to go back to our original question from our listener, he could be undrafted at this point. You're looking at on Football Guys expert rankings, he's going number 228 overall. That's undrafted territory in a 12-team redraft league. And so what if you stash him on the end of your bench for what? I'd rather hammer, flyer running backs, someone with a path to starting potential with any kind of injury with my last few picks. So I'm just not interested at all, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do with Julio Jones is during your fantasy football draft when beers are flowing and everyone's talking and having fun, just start talking about Julio Jones and be like, yeah, man, if there's anywhere he can bounce back, it's Tampa Bay. Let somebody else go out and get him. But that's kind of where I'm at, too. I don't think that he really moves the needle all that much. And it's just, Julio Jones, no disrespect, is meant. Easily one of the best wide receivers that we have ever seen in our lifetimes, like without a doubt. He's been phenomenal, but he's seen his target share dip every single year since 2017. His yardage and his touchdowns have gone down every single year since 2018. He just is a shell of the player that he used to be, and it's really tough to imagine him coming into Tampa and suddenly just taking on a huge workload and rewinding the clock, even if he is playing with Tom Brady. The one point I will make, though, and Jacob Sanderson pointed this out to me, last year, Mike Evans saw less than a 17% target share and still put up top 10 numbers. So there's a chance that maybe Julio just kind of does something similar where he's not a huge part of the offense, but he just gets hyper-targeted near the goal line and in the end zone and, has some touchdowns. But if that's what you're getting from Julio Jones, are you ever going to feel comfortable about plugging him into your starting lineup? If you're seeing a 2-catch for, a touchdown and 4 yards, like that's not somebody that you're plugging into your lineup confidently. So maybe throw a late-round dart in best ball, but I'm telling you, you're probably not getting him very late. From the best ball drafts that I've been doing today, he's been going in the 10th, 11th, and 12th round, which is
Stop it.
Oh no, it's getting guys. No, stop. Okay.
Show yourselves.
Here's it, like 10th to again. I like 13th, 14th round. Let maybe there. Like let's leave him in that area, please.
Yeah, no, it's just I think people are getting a little bit too excited right now, and I think we're all kind of in agreement here. I don't think it really moves the needle all that much, but I think we talked about Julio enough. I mean, I know Sig just did a show on Julio. They talked about him this morning. You can check that out if you want a different opinion on Julio. And really, I mean, it's a weird situation where you have an aging superstar who has been trending down for year after year after year, landing in a situation where he could bounce back, but there's just way too much uncertainty there and too many other playmakers in Tampa to really feel confident about drafting him. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into some quick introductions here. Everybody knows Troy and Victoria by now, but Troy, go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
You can find me at King Mode pretty much on all social media platforms. Twitter is my home base, so yeah, just follow me at King Mode, and I appreciate it.
Vic, same to you. Let everyone know where they can find you.
At FFB_Victoria on Twitter and Instagram. I gotta ramp up that Instagram content, honey. I'm lacking there, but Twitter, I'm just popping off all the time. So find me there.
Yeah, don't follow me on Instagram unless you like mountain pictures, because I try to keep my social medias very compartmentalized, and there's no sports talk on my Instagram. But let's go ahead and jump into the show. But before that, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys if you have not already. In addition to this show, we've got the Audible, we got the Launchpad, we got the Best Ball Show, we got the Dynasty Show, the Dynasty Newsletter Show. Believe it or not, DFS Power Grid is coming back in just a few weeks. Guys, it's Wednesday today. Tomorrow puts us 1 week away from preseason football. I don't care if it's the Jaguars' fourth string. It is actual NFL players in pads and helmets on a field. I'm ready for it. 40 days out from kickoff. You guys ready?
I am born ready.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in with some more questions here. This one comes in from Roto Heat Craig, good friend of the show. And he says, in deep leagues, which Green Bay wide receiver not named Allen Lazard? This is a Dave caveat I had to include. Do you like best this season, taking into account their current ADPs? So, Victoria, start us off here. Obviously, Allen Lazard is getting a ton of buzz right now. Aaron Rodgers came out today and said that he is a future Hall of Famer. We saw clips coming out of contested catches down the sideline and big touchdowns and just doing everything you wanted to see from Allen Lazard. So hopefully you locked in your shares now, because I have a feeling we're going to see him creeping up into the 4th, 5th round here pretty soon. But who are the late round guys that you have your eyes on, Victoria?
Yeah, I took a look at current ADPs I've got here. Got Christian Watson, rookie. Wide receiver 55. He's very close to Allen Lazard's current ADP at wide receiver 51, which is wild to me. Point that out. Sammy Watkins, wide receiver 75. Randall Cobb, 91. Amari Rodgers, 105. And we got our boy Romeo at 111. So we want to keep an eye on Christian Watson. I did see some news that he started camp, I think, on the PUP list. To begin, they were being very vague about things. The only updates I could find today is that he will miss some time in camp after, quote, something was noticed at OTAs, and they decided to address it now instead of waiting until after the season. That's a little bit scary and vague to me, especially with the ADP of wide receiver 55 right now. That's very, very vague and scary there. They also said they asked the coach if he was going to be activated before preseason games, and they were just as vague there. They're not putting any timeline on it. So I'm kind of I've been shying away from Watson a little bit after all that news. It's a little scary there. I also saw today one of the Green Bay beat writers said, day one in the books, Lazard obviously a day one standout, but Romeo as well was in the conversation there. This guy's going to be undrafted. Someone you want to keep an eye on your waiver wire. I had to say Randall Cobb here, as gross as that sounds. I will never trust Sammy Watkins ever again. You can't even look at him. He's already on the NFI list, I believe, and it's the Christian Watson thing is scary. If you miss that much time in camp, let's say, he misses some time. He's not building chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. He's coming from a small school out of college. He has to get up to NFL speed. His price is way too high, and we need to cut it, first of all. So I'm going to go with Randall Cobb. He's trusted by Aaron Rodgers, and he really only has right now Lazard and Aaron Jones, my boy, to be thrown to. So I'll take a shot at Randall Cobb.
I like where the show is trending. We got a J. Cole reference a few days ago, and was that an ASAP Ferg that you snuck in there? Price is way too high. We need to cut it. Did I catch that? Maybe.
Yeah, you
did.
Troy, same question over to you though, and love the Dubes call out, by the way. I mean, a lot of people have been getting kind of been hyping him up for a while. I mean, he's kind of the afterthought in this year's draft, but so many people just talk about how he's just a great scheme fit, that what he does matches up so well with what Aaron Rodgers likes to do. So, yeah, gotta raise some eyebrows if you're getting good reviews after day one of camp. But Troy, same question over to you. Who's a late round guy that you are looking at?
I'll be honest. I gotta disagree with Victoria on this one. So now let me explain why. Okay, so Sammy Watkins, we can agree on. Randall Cobb. So if I'm looking at a deeper league, right? I'm looking at late.
Make sure you clarify. We can agree that we don't want Sammy Watkins, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, we all agree we don't want Sammy Watkins. Yes, we all agree. But the thing about Randall Cobb, right? If I'm looking at a deeper league and I'm looking at that range, I'm looking for upside. Randall Cobb does not provide upside. Like if you want 5 PPR points, cool. I like you, Randall Cobb. But it's like he's very safe. Here's the thing. Like he's a very safe option. He could be a security blanket, maybe luck into a touchdown here and there. But until we get more clarity in the Christian Watson thing, I'm still gonna take Christian Watson at his ADP, right? They spend the draft capital on him. He's big, he's athletic. And again, once if we get more clarity, if we're like, oh, he's gonna be out for 6-7 games, then I'll change my answer. But as right now, where things stand, nothing has been determined in terms of how long he's going to be missing or whatever. So out of all these other gross options, I'm going to take the guy that has potential upside, and that's going to be Christian Watson right now.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised by that. Christian Watson is a guy that I was a little concerned about how he'd fit into this offense to begin with. And then knowing how Aaron Rodgers just, how much he relies on trust and chemistry with his receivers, I feel like missing any time as a rookie is really, it's going to be tough to bounce back from, especially in Green Bay. I mean, from any team, but especially Green Bay. And because of that, the trust and chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, that's why I don't hate Randall Cobb. I mean, I've been loudly beating the drum for Allen Lazard all offseason, but I've also drafted a lot of Randall Cobb in the 18th rounds of my best ball drafts, just on the off chance that, maybe, yeah, I mean, he's got the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, and like you said, you don't feel good about it, and you're probably not expecting a ton, and that's why he's getting drafted in the 18th round, but what if Rodgers just leans on Randall Cobb, a guy that he's got a lot of chemistry with? Randall Cobb dealt with some injuries last year. He's probably going to be playing out of the slot where he should see a decent amount of targets. I don't think that anybody's projected, 1,400-yard season from Randall Cobb, but, if you're getting a guy in round 18 that's going to put up 800 yards and 6 touchdowns, he's smashed his ADP at that point, and I think that it's very realistic that Randall Cobb could finish somewhere around there. I like Dubes, too, for the ceiling. He's got a sky-high ceiling. Amari Rodgers, it just isn't somebody I can really rally behind.
Get him out of here.
I think you can count on both hands how many snaps he had last year. I mean, he just didn't really get a chance to see the field. You doubt that he suddenly walks into a meaningful workload in week 2. But let me just ask you guys, not even the question that Craig had here, but are you guys starting to warm up to Allen Lazard a little bit? I mean, how are we feeling about Allen Lazard? Right now, he's getting drafted in the 7th, 8th round.
Dave, I've been hearing you since maybe before the Super Bowl last year, and touting this guy. Of course, I've already been where you forced us. You put us in a headlock and you said, "You will like Allen Lazard."
No, Victoria said it perfectly, right?
Allen Lazard truther show. You got that here.
No, it's true, because at this moment in time, they've pretty much hammered it over our heads. Like, I'm on the Allen Lazard train, because again, I wasn't, but Dave literally talked about him every single day since the end of last season. So I don't think there's been a day where Allen Lazard's name has not been brought up since the end of the season. So if he has a good season, look at Dave. I swear. Yeah. I don't know if I could talk to Dave anymore if he happens to have a ridiculously good season. But yeah,
I got receipts dating back to 2019. I've been hyping this guy for years, but a while. Ever since Devontae Adams got traded, it's been wheels up for my Allen Lazard love. But let's go on to the next question, and this is fits right in with what we were just talking about. Andrew Hall asks us, how much does missing practice impact your values for players? Is it different for new teammates versus old teammates? So, I mean, we can go so many different ways with this question, and I'll let you
Oh,
guys
we
go
got
ahead.
them all. We got
Okay,
them
so
all.
I'll take this
Start
one
us off,
first.
Troy.
So, kind of like you said, the Christian. So go back to the Christian Watts thing, right? Clearly, as a rookie, missing time with the new quarterback. Again, I feel like for rookies, I think it's an obvious answer in terms of like it's going to hurt you if if you're in a new offense, obviously being drafted for a first time as rookie and you're not practicing. Yeah, I feel for new teams like. I think it's a level of player. So, for example, if you're, let's say, knock on wood, if Devontae Adams, for whatever reason, had to miss practice, I'm not going to be worried about Devontae Adams, right? Because he's Devontae Adams. So, even if he missed a little time, he's not injured, y'all. Knock on wood. But I'm just saying, a caliber player like that, I'm not going to care. But it's like, for example, Antonio Gibson, he's dealing with a hamstring injury. He's and I'm a little bit, there's been he's been down in terms of people's eyes and values, this season in terms of the off-season value. But he's been in that system. He's familiar with that system. So hopefully a hamstring injury is not that serious, but like that's a guy that I'm not too worried about. It's just, I think it depends on if it's like a middling, if it's like a wide receiver 2 or something like that, on a new team, maybe I'll be a little bit concerned, but I feel like it depends on how much time and how severe the injury is.
Yeah, completely agree with all that. Victoria, before you get answered real quickly, I just want to pull up this question from the chat real quickly. Somebody asking, I'm supposed to be plugging this every week and I forget to, but somebody's asking, why aren't we on the main FBG podcast anymore, but still part of the YouTube channel? We are still under the Football Guys podcast, but we do have our own stream now with the Launchpad and the Dynasty Show, the Dynasty Newsletter Show, and so many others. We were just really crowding up the Audible feed, so now we have separate streams for all of them. They can be found under the Football Guys tag on Apple Podcasts, but be sure to subscribe individually so you can catch all of these shows. Sorry about that. Victoria, back to you. How does missing practice affect your value for players in the offseason?
Make sure y'all subscribe. We are almost in August. Come on now. So I agree with Troy, and I think I separated this into a couple of categories. Obviously, the rookie thing, completely agree. Christian Watson, David Bell is on PUP as well for Cleveland. Definitely a little worrisome there. Also, guys that are in camp that are on new teams or even not on a new team that could lose meaningful camp snaps to a rookie or other competition. I'm going to bring up Jamison Crowder. A lot of people are touting Jamison Crowder for the Bills being that slot guy. He's been on the bike for the last 2 days. He's given snaps to Isaiah McKenzie. He's given snaps to Shakir, a rookie Bills just drafted. And he's been a steal at ADP, Jamison Crowder, but then you open up camp with these worries that he's already maybe injury, quote-unquote, injury-prone type of player. So that's worrisome. He's losing those snaps to those kind of guys. And then similarly, guys working their way back from injury, I could say no, depending, right? So someone like Hollywood Brown, who started on PUP, he's got the hamstring injury. That's a little bit worrisome. You never know with hamstrings, they can linger. Same thing with Antonio Gibson, as Troy already mentioned. Antonio Gibson, the context, I agree with Troy in saying he already knows the offense and all that. Got to keep an eye on that. You've got rookie Brian Robinson coming out. He's taking snaps with the ones today. So you're giving snaps to rookies in that case. That's a little bit worrisome. You got to keep an eye on that. And his injury was from a month ago as well. So I get there easing him back in and being careful, but got to keep an eye on that. Guys like Gus Bus and J.K. Dobbins, where are they at in their recovery, right? We talked last week how Dobbins dunked on Ian Rappaport, blazed him for saying he'd be on PUP.
In practice.
And he's on PUP.
And he's on PUP. So those kinds of things, like that's very interesting to me. You want to keep an eye on that kind of thing as camp goes on because we don't know if they're ready to go yet. So it depends, I guess.
And I think a big thing for me just has to do with, well, first of all, I mean, I love to call out, like you said, about players in new teams that are giving up snaps. And I'm worried. I've been one of those people touting Jamison Crowder all offseason. And now with Jamison Crowder being unable to play, I mean, what happens if Isaiah McKenzie comes out, looks great, and then he never gives a job back? So that's certainly a worry. But I think for me, just on like a bigger scale, it's the longer somebody's been in the league, the less I care about them showing up to camp. Like Rob Gronkowski, he could sign 2 days before week 1, and I'd be like, all right, cool, Gronk is good to go, and I wouldn't think twice about it. But with rookies specifically, that first offseason is so crucial. Like rookies that miss that year one offseason really struggle to get up to NFL speed. So any of these rookies that aren't at camp right now, it raises some red flags for me, and I've adjusted my ranks and pushed some of these guys down a little bit. Christian Watson being the main one, it's very worrisome if Christian Watson is unable to work out that timing and the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, and they're not going to have the opportunities mid-season to work on that trust and chemistry. They're going to be game planning for individual games, so it is crucial for him to get out there as soon as possible if he wants to have any sort of meaningful role as a rookie. All right, let's move on to the next question, and this one comes in from our friend Anand, who I just saw in the chat. Hopefully you are still tuned in, Anand. He is saying, would you rather draft Tua, or where would you draft Tua, given his new cast of weapons? Troy, you will love this. Today I had to go to the car dealership. I had to get some work done on my car, and something I've been doing lately, I just get bored doing one draft at a time, so I've been firing off 5 drafts at once in Underdog. I don't know how, crazy, but somehow I ended up with Tua on 4 of my 5 teams when they were all said and done. The value is just there. I'm starting to warm up to it. So, Troy, the mic's yours first. Talk to us a little bit about Tua.
Sure. So what's funny is I'm in a charity redraft league right now, right? And according to Footballguys ADP, he's going as QB 16. And guess where I took him at QB in my redraft league at QB 16. I didn't even look at the Footballguys thing. They're just so in sync. That's the value, right? And it happened to be, it's a super flex league. It happened to be in the 3rd round that I took him in the super flex league. But again, QB 16, I absolutely love that price for Tua because he has upside. Because do I have to explain the upside to you guys? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. And at QB 16, you're not taking him as a QB1. You're taking him as a mid-level QB2. So to me, at that price, I'll take that value all day because that's also, you don't have to necessarily reach for, especially if it's a standard 1 QB league, you don't have to necessarily reach for the top guys. If you're getting somebody, again, within that range like Tua who has that upside, you can get him so late. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Dolphins fan. It's just the proof is in the pudding, right? It's just you don't have to invest a lot. In 1 QB leagues in general, you shouldn't spend up necessarily on a QB anyway. You should focus on the other position. So to me, QB 16, absolutely love that for Tua.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I've been taking him. And the reason that I have been drafting him a lot lately is because I just noticed, I don't let my fandom, affect my analysis too much. But I had a lot of Justin Fields. I was sitting at like 25% exposure on Justin Fields. And I said, I can't keep doing that. And it just seems like after passing on Justin Fields, the next available quarterback that's always there is Tua. And I feel like that's a decent arbitrage. Like if you're going to move off of Justin Fields, wait around and get Tua, I feel like there's similar upside with both players. So I've definitely turned my sights to Tua and been drafting him quite a bit lately. Victoria, same question to you though. Where are you drafting Tua?
Goodness, I'd have to. I'm agreeing with Troy. When I saw this question, I looked up the ADP as well, and I just thought that's right around where I probably would draft him. So there are a couple of guys we have on the Footballguys ADP page that are going before Tua that I wanted to throw out to you guys, though, because now I'm like, maybe I would take him a little bit sooner. So there's guys like Kirk Cousins. Would you take him before Kirk?
I'm taking Kirk.
Oh,
Troy's taking Kirk too. He just
I think I'm taking Kirk. I'm taking Kirk.
Okay, Derek Carr.
Definitely taking Derek Carr over Tua, 100%.
So Justin Fields and Tua are going back to back. So Justin Fields is going right before Tua, and that is where I could see myself.
I've been taking Tua over Justin Fields. I know Dave's been taking Justin Fields over Tua. You can make arguments for both of them. I get it, but I feel like that's a very good range for him. I feel like that's perfect because those other guys we mentioned, especially Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, I don't feel comfortable taking him over those guys. Obviously, Kirk Cousins has JJ. Don't sleep on Adam Thielen now. I know he's old, but he's still a valuable wide receiver. So I can't take Tua yet, but I'm telling y'all, he's a value.
I think when looking at Tua and Justin Fields, what it is, it's more of a conversation about risk and how much risk you're willing to absorb. Because if you look at their median range of outcomes, they're probably very, very similar. But Tua is going to give you a much safer floor, but doesn't have the ceiling. Where Justin Fields, his floor is essentially a trap door. I mean, he could just be god awful, but his ceiling is, literally being the overall QB1 if everything goes right and he ends up being a great quarterback, where I don't think that Tua has that in his range of outcomes. So between the two of them, if you're looking at both of them, it just comes down to risk. Do you want the safer option, a guy that's probably going to give you a top 12, top 15 season, or do you want the guy that you might drop in a few weeks, but has the potential to be a fantastic quarterback?
I mean, the thing about Justin Fields, let's rewind. Okay, you said QB1 overall. Who is he throwing to, my guy? He getting Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet.
You already know who was QB1 through weeks 1 through 11 last year. Jalen Hurts, who had a rookie to throw to. That
Devontae Smith, he's better than. And Dallas Goedert, at least those. I mean, they're better than Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet.
Exactly.
Let's go back 2 years and look at 2020. Who was Deshaun Watson throwing to in 2020? He had Brandon Cooks, which Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks.
And then he had half of a season of Will Fuller, who was limited in almost every single game that he played.
But he's Deshaun Watson. That's completely different.
You don't think Justin Fields has the potential to be as good as Deshaun Watson? I mean, they are the
just
same
keep running,
player.
Fields. Just keep running, and then we'll see. Just keep running.
And that's the big thing is, when you look at Justin Fields overall, he doesn't have a lot of rushing yards, especially in college, but his team was literally undefeated his junior year in college. He didn't have to run at all. Last year, he put up 420 yards, starting 10 games and only playing in a couple others. So I think that we should be expecting 700 to 800 yards rushing from Justin Fields this year. I think he's running for his life on this offense. I mean, there's nothing else that the offense really has going for him. That's what draws me in. But Victoria, who are some other quarterbacks that we're comping with Tua here?
So two quarterbacks going right after Tua are Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, obviously Deshaun Watson. We won't talk about him though, and then Trevor Lawrence as well. Trevor Lawrence is going right after Tua. So Trevor Lawrence and Matt Ryan are where I kind of say I'm not sure. I don't know if I do a Matt Ryan over Tua only because of Tyreek. And Matt Ryan still got a lot left in the tank, sure, but I still would take. I think so. I think we talked about him on the show last week a little bit. I mean, he had a down season last year, but before that, he didn't finish worse than QB 12. I think maybe QB 15.
Yeah,
I'd still take Tua over those guys.
Yeah, I'm taking Tua over Lawrence and Ryan.
Yeah.
Troy.
I'm saying, let's talk about for Trevor Lawrence for 2 seconds. I know you could say Urban Meyer, whatever. Trevor Lawrence was awful last year. Absolutely terrible. But so we're expecting, and again, I know he's first overall pick. He would have to make a giant leap forward this season to even be in the conversation of taking him ahead of any of these guys. And his best weapon right now is Christian Kirk, who's a decent player, but that's his wide receiver 1.
Evan Ingram erasure.
Oh, I hate it.
And Evan Ingram, it's just I expect Jacksonville to still be bad, but maybe they just throw more. But I don't expect them to be a good team. So we'll see how it plays out. But man, Trevor Lawrence has got to be significantly better. He needs to take a Josh Allen type leap, and Josh Allen didn't take a Josh Allen type leap until year 3. So he got to figure out to do it in his second year. Because man, that was atrocious last year.
Yeah, it really was, and it's so tough because when you look just at the numbers. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was awful. But then you talk to a lot of scouts and film evaluators, and they say that he showed a lot of things that, you should be excited about seeing from a rookie quarterback. For instance, his best passes were across the middle, intermediate parts of the field, which is where a lot of rookies struggle. Rookies like throwing the short balls, and they like throwing the bombs, and they like throwing to the outside. But Trevor Lawrence was confidently hitting guys in the middle of the field. And then somebody else pointed out that on a lot of his interceptions, Daniel Harms, I was on his show recently, and he pointed this out to me. A lot of his receptions, it wasn't necessarily Trevor Lawrence making a bad pass. It was just miscommunication because there were so many option routes that the receivers had to run in Urban Meyer's offense that the receiver would think, I'm supposed to break this way. Trevor Lawrence expected him to break another way. So it wasn't that Trevor Lawrence was just inaccurate and throwing bad balls. It was just that it was a very complex offense that, nobody really got on the same page throughout the season. So I don't want to completely give him a pass because he did struggle, but I think there is still some untapped potential in Trevor Lawrence, so we did not see it all last year.
He can't get worse.
I'm still taking Tua over him. I mean, the upside is there, but I'm still taking Tua over him.
Absolutely.
Next question comes in from Iconoclast asking, my home league is 10 teams, half PPR, start 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, and 1 flex. What would be your strategy in this format? I'll start off here because, we get so in our own heads with playing super flex and 3 wide receiver and multiple flex. This is old school, and I like this. And this is how I like playing fantasy football still. And these are the leagues where you need to hammer running backs early because you don't have multiple flex spots, because you aren't starting 3 wide receivers. Here, running backs and wide receivers are valued pretty similarly, and there's such a just positional scarcity with running backs that this is the type of league where I might start off drafting running back in my first 3 rounds, trying to lock in that advantage as much as I can. Also knowing that if it's a league where there's a lot of trading, the chances are if you end up hitting on all 3 of those running backs, you could trade one. You could probably trade an RB2 for a wide receiver 1. That's the type of things that happen in these sorts of leagues. So that would be my advice in this league, is just hammer running backs as hard as possible. What do you guys have to add?
Agree there. At a minimum, you take a running back with your first pick. At the bare minimum, for your first pick, take a running back. Absolutely. I typically go running back in a league this small as well.
So I will say is that anytime, because this is my favorite format to play, that's how I started getting into fantasy, is this basic format, which I absolutely love because I feel like it's nostalgic. I will say in terms of previous championships, I've won it on the back of stud running backs, but I will say is that be flexible. Let's see how your other league mates are drafting. Be water. So I say, even though my favorite approach to this is heavy running back, if you happen to get a really good value on the wide receiver, like a JJ or a Chase or a Cooper Kupp, you could lean that direction, because look, stud wide receivers, even though it's like they're going to help you win the championship too, right? But again, my favorite is stud running backs. And they, like you guys already mentioned, positional scarcity is huge, especially in this format with such a small group and not your 10-team leagues. But just try to be water, right? You have your preferred strategy, but you don't necessarily have to be locked into that preferred strategy if the draft isn't going how you expected it to go.
Yeah, I mean that's always good advice. Absolutely.
We just put out roundtable article for redraft strategies on footballguys.com. Another one's coming out as well that I just contributed to. I think you guys did as well. I didn't catch it in there, but I think you contributed. But yes, check those out on footballguys.com for that redraft strategy. Those would be perfect articles for getting some of our other staff's opinions as well.
There is so much content right now on Football Guys. Like I'm struggling just to even share it all on social media. I'm the one tweeting this stuff out from the Football Guys Twitter page. I can't even keep up. Like I take half a day off, and I'm like, all right, I'm 8 articles behind. Like, how am I going to catch up on these? Steph has been crushing it this offseason, so absolutely be sure to check that out. Well, guys, we purposely kind of left the pre-submitted questions a little bit thin today so we can get to the chat. We got 2 questions left, and then we're going to hop into the chat. I already see a ton of questions coming through, so keep dropping those in the chat, and we will get to them in just a few minutes. Next question comes in from Alan Bolts River, asking, besides CeeDee Lamb, who else does Dallas have at receiver?
I love this.
Let's start us off, Nick.
Okay, so the depth chart. The unofficial depth chart, we got CeeDee Lamb. We got Michael Gallup dealing with his ACL injuries, coming back from it. Saw a nice little video of him doing some sidestepping today. He's not going to be ready, right? Third on the depth chart, they have rookie Jalen Tolbert there. Interesting. Obviously, James Washington also joined the team, who was like the wide receiver 4-ish on the Pittsburgh for a while. But Jalen Tolbert, super interesting to me. Wide receiver 74 in Football Guys ADP right now. 186 overall, so he might be someone you could get with your last pick in a redraft league like we were just talking about. I've seen reports, Mike McCarthy saying, there's an opportunity at wideout, obviously, to make an early impact. He's expecting rookies to make an early impact. And I took a look at Tolbert's stats on player profile today. College dominator rating of 51.2%. His target share was 33.4%. Had a nice breakout age at 20. I mean, he looked good. He had 10 of 12 games in college with 80 receiving yards or more, and 6 of 12 with 140 receiving yards or more. I mean, he was really, really good in his last year. I saw him catch a nice high ball from Dak today on Twitter, and I saw James Washington, on the other hand, struggle a little bit today in practice. So it's been so fun. I just want to point out just seeing all the videos too coming out this week. I am so happy. But yeah, Jalen Tolbert's someone who you might just want to stash on the end of your bench because he has the opportunity to produce right away with Michael Gallup likely not being ready week 1.
Agreed. He's been getting a ton of buzz from a lot of really sharp analysts. And for whatever reason, the market just hasn't adapted, and he's still, going in the final rounds of your draft. So love that Jalen Tolbert call out. Troy, do you have anything to add about the Dallas receivers?
Vic said it perfectly. I feel like with James Washington, right? I think you're kind of knowing what you're getting with him. With Jalen Tolbert, it just screams upside. And now he has an opportunity to really take advantage of some of the injuries that are, happening with the Cowboys. So, yeah, especially where he's going, in this wide receiver 70 range. Like, yeah, I love me some Jalen Tolbert. That's who I would be targeting in drafts for sure.
Can't forget. I know it doesn't say, it says wide receivers, but can't forget Dalton Schultz as well.
Dalton Schultz, yeah.
I do love him for a tight end pick.
Tight end 3, finished as tight end 3 last year.
Tight end 6 in ADP right now in Footballguys. Interesting.
He's a tough one, and I just in my head what I see is a young Zach Ertz, and it took me years to get on board with Zach Ertz because there's nothing flashy about his game. It's not like you watch him and it's just like every single game somehow it's just like, oh wow, Dalton Schultz is another 75 yards. I didn't even see him do that, and that's how Zach Ertz was for years. It's like this guy would just keep churning out 800-900. He would just have these 800-900 yard seasons, and it's like you didn't even really see it happen. You blink and you miss it, and that's kind of how Dalton Schultz is. So
safety blanket.
Yes.
Safety blanket, exactly, and that's what Dalton Schultz is going to be this year. All right, last question before we go over to the chat, and this one comes in from Jason Alexander saying, now that Trey Lance has been named the official starter, how high are you drafting him? We can go back to last week's show where we talked about this a little bit. I know this is a callback to last week's show, but I haven't really changed my stance until Jimmy Garoppolo was actually cut or traded. I'm still a little concerned. So they can talk all they want, but
you got Taylor.
Wow, Dave. Wow.
I'll take this one. I would draft him. I'll probably draft him between QB highest, between QB 7, QB 10 in terms of highest. He has the upside. I'm personally not going to. Because there's other guys I like there, but I say I wouldn't fault somebody for taking him in that range, right? They came out and said he's the dude. What do we love? We love QBs with rushing upside. We love QBs in good offenses. This guy has everything that you want in a fantasy player, right? He just screwed everything that you want Justin Fields to be. Trey Lance got it, right? He's in a good offense. He has good weapons. It's just, to me, it just screams draft me, So,
yeah. All I'm going to push back. QB 7. That means you're taking him because you assume the top 6. I feel like there's a very clear cut tier there: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. We don't have to split hairs and rank those guys in any certain order, but that is the top 6. After that, QB 7, where you're saying he should be going possibly that high, I just can't get on board with that because right after that,
no. What I'm saying is, me personally, I'm probably not taking him that high. I've seen him being taken around that range, QB 7, QB 8, after this news. I've seen him being drafted there. But you know what? At first, I'm like, whoa. Then I just step back and I'm like, I get it. Because if you're expecting him to be like Jalen Hurts, if you're expecting him to have a season like that, which is very realistic, it makes complete sense. Okay, you got guys like Dak who's in a good offense. He doesn't provide that much rushing. He's, again, all these other QBs that are going around him are going to be good. But are any of the other ones in that range? Talk about somebody that has QB1 overall upside. It's a hot take, but it's screaming right there. Offense, you got Debo, you got Kittle, you got Kyle Shanahan offense, you got the rushing, you got the big arm. It's hard to ignore that.
Dave,
taking him at QB 7, that's ahead of Tom Brady, who was the QB 3 last year. That's ahead of Matthew Stafford, who was the QB 5 last year. Aaron Rodgers, QB 6 last year.
Look, I get it.
His new team. Joe Burrow, you're taking him ahead of Joe Burrow. I can't. I got him outside of top 10. I can't draft him ahead of those guys that I just mentioned.
And that's totally fair. I'm not faulting anybody. Again, that's completely fair. But with those guys, none of these guys are going to suck, right? None of them in that range is just he's a whole different animal if he's what everyone expects him to be.
So, Dave,
if everything goes right, he could be as good as Joe Burrow.
Is your concern only here, like, over Fields, just that Jimmy Garoppolo is still in San Fran?
No, I mean I'm taking Trey Lance ahead of Justin Fields. I mean that's not.
I knew that.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure, to be honest.
I knew that at least. Like Dave did not. That's stubborn.
The situation in San Francisco is obviously a lot better. But we saw this guy in a 2-game sample size last year. He started 2 games, and people are just going gung-ho about his, 22, 23, 24 points per game, whatever it was.
Jalen Hurts only started, 4 or 5 before I was touting him to be taken in, these mid-rounds, and then he smashed last year. I know it's a small range. You never know, but he's not – his cost right now, obviously it's going to go up as this news has just broke. But quarterback 13 for Football Guys ADP. In our expert rankings, he's at quarterback 15, and I assume most of us have updated our rankings since the news. So I was kind of surprised to see him sitting there overall at QB 15. Sig has him at QB 9. Dave, what do you think about that?
Wow.
Again, I don't blame him.
Yeah,
it's high.
I understand the argument for it. I am just going to take the proven guys that are coming off of top 5 seasons, that have done nothing but churn out top 5 seasons. I just think it's crazy to give up a guy who is basically locked in to being top 5, which I think you can say that about Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady would take a miracle for him not to put up, a top 5, top 6 season this year. And I just, putting Lance ahead of proven vets who have, are on better offenses. I can't get behind it. I realize the upside is there, but when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, I'm still taking those guys ahead of Lance.
What about over Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr? Because we've already talked. We like those guys. We like them on the show.
I'm taking Lance ahead of them.
Yes, me too. I think with that rushing upside, they don't have that same ceiling. So, and those guys are going, I think, QB 13 and 14 right now in our rankings. So I would definitely be taking Lance over them.
Yeah. I feel like we'll have another question about Lance next week, and we'll just open this can of worms all over
until the rest of the season. Every week we're going to talk about Trey Lance, probably.
Well, let's hit the chat because we still have 20 minutes left, which is more time than we ever have. We usually spend a lot of time on those pre-submitted questions. So let's get after this in the chat. First question coming from our favorite cat, Mr. Scampers, asking us Julio Jones or Hef Wilson.
Hef, for sure. Jeff Wilson.
I'm just throwing off all of my J's today.
My name is Jeff with your last pick. Come on. I mean, there have been camp reports that he's just behind Elijah Mitchell. We know his injury history. I get it, but you taking Jeff with one of your last picks, you have upside there.
Yep, I am with it. We've been hearing about a possible committee coming out, and a lot of people are putting their chips on TDP to be the guy that Elijah Mitchell is going to share carries with. But what if it's just Jeff Wilson? So I'm with it as well. And Elijah Mitchell, he's been banged up a lot as a rookie. Chances are, being just around 200 pounds, he's going to get banged up a lot in year 2 as well. So I like Jeff Wilson over Julio Jones.
I would say I got to give Mr. Scampers credit, right? Because it's actually, when I think about it, it's actually a pretty good question, right? It's a gross question, but it's a good question. Because I feel like majority of players, if you're in a draft, your last pick, and these 2 options are there, the vast majority of people are going to be taking Julio Jones. Right? Like, let's be honest, right? Anybody you ask, because I think like the casual fan.
Yeah, in a home league. In a home league.
No one's normal majority of people, if they see these 2 names, they're going to go Julio Jones. I know, but again, which is fine. And again, maybe because we're analysts, we look at things every day. But I feel like majority of people, they don't care. Like, they're not going to listen to us. They're going to say Julio Jones, Tom Brady, Buccaneers. I'm taking Julio. So for me, who has the most upside, right? I feel like if Elijah Mitchell goes down, Jeff Wilson has extreme upside. If anyone else gets injured in Tampa Bay, the wide receivers, Julio can have a little bit of upside. I think if it was me,
we'll just elevate Scotty Miller and Cyril Grayson.
I don't know, man. Look,
Tyler Johnson.
Shout out to Jeff Bell, football guy staffer. He mentioned that Julio should switch to tight end. I thought that was hilarious, but that would be amazing if you could think about doing that.
Can I just refreshed my Twitter page and I would need to call out this tweet from Matt Friedman. He says, I draft Julio Jones before Allen Robinson in fantasy. Ask me anything.
I saw that, and I thought he was joking. I pray to God that he's joking. I pray that you're joking, Matt, because we're going to have to talk about this after the show.
Thought that was funny.
That's a take.
My brother in Christ.
All right, next question. Oh, we got another one from Mr. Scampers here, and we'll keep this one a little bit shorter, but Julio Jones or Randall Cobb?
Cobb, baby.
I'll take Julio.
Randall Cobb had 3 games over, 16 PPR points last season. Come on.
Give me a Julio in this.
Come on.
Skip Mellon in the chat asking us, does Matthew Stafford's elbow injury affect any of your rankings? Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been dealing with his elbow injury since Vietnam, right? Like I feel like he's just constantly dealing with an elbow.
He's a warrior. He's gonna be just fine.
Is he throwing in practice? I would be curious to see. I haven't seen an update on that, but it's not affected my rankings this far.
Yeah, let's wait to the close of the season. If there's some prognosis that he's gonna be out for a while, cool. But if he's active, I'm perfectly fine starting him. It's not gonna change anything.
I'm trying to remember. Like, I know he's been in an Iron Man. I remember he had that hand injury that he was dealing with. Like, he played with a dislocated shoulder or something like that. His
back. I remember back in Detroit days, his back was all jacked up, and he played through that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, what all of his injuries were. But it just feels like
his entire body.
Tough dude. He is a tough dude. Like, there are always injuries where they say, Matthew Stafford's not going to play this week. And then he just shows up and plays and balls out. That's what Matthew Stafford's done his whole career. So, no, I'm not too concerned about this elbow injury. Next question comes in from Trey saying, half PPR redraft, how would you rank Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, and Travis Etienne 1 through 5? Great question here.
I like this.
Miles Sanders last. Can we all agree quickly?
All agree on that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Now, this is going to be, and I feel weird saying this because I've been the Travis Etienne guy all offseason. I was really pumping him up when he was a 5th and a 6th round value, but now he's creeping into the 3rd round. Out of this entire bunch, I think I like Breece Hall best. And right now, Travis Etienne is getting drafted a full round ahead of Breece Hall. But if I had to rank these guys, I'm going Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders.
That's my exact list. Easy.
Yeah. I could switch Josh and Antonio Gibson potentially, but I think I had to agree here. Gotta be realistic.
Josh Jacobs does nothing, but people love to hate Josh Jacobs, but he's so consistent. He's always an RB1. Like, I don't understand. And he's always a value. Like, he's always going, like, it may be because he doesn't catch passes. I don't know. But, like, Josh Jacobs is always a value to me. Zamir White being drafted does not scare me. But, yeah, he's my 3rd in this order.
Kenyon Drake coming back, too.
But Kenyon Drake did absolutely
Drake
nothing.
Is looking healthy. I think he... So here's the thing, though. You got to remember that they got a new coaching staff. Last year they had John Gruden and why am I drawing a blank? I can't even remember Rich Basciani or whatever. But both of those guys were very old school coaches that wanted to really commit to the run, and they wanted to take that old school approach of having a workhorse running back. Josh McDaniels is the complete opposite. They're going to have very specialized roles for their running backs. So my fear is that all Josh Jacobs gets is 1st and 2nd down and nothing else. And if all he's getting are 15 carries a game, I mean he's basically going to be getting Damian Harris's workload, but he's getting drafted 5 rounds earlier. That's my fear with Josh Jacobs.
Right.
But Damian Harris scored a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, he was hyper efficient, 15 touchdowns. Yeah.
And Josh Jacobs can too. But that's what I'm saying. If why draft Josh Jacobs that early? Like, it's, I feel like there's so many guys that kind of fit that same archetype where you got like Nick Chubb, and he's obviously the most talented of the bunch, and that's why he's going in the 3rd round. And then a couple rounds later, you got Josh Jacobs, who's the same type of player, but not quite as talented. And then a few rounds later, you got Damian Harris. I mean, they're all kind of the same player, just on different offenses. Josh Jacobs scares me a little bit this year with Josh McDaniels in town. I thought that Josh Jacobs would be getting pushed into like the 7th or 8th round, but where he's still getting drafted in rounds 5 or 6.
I feel like every year though, there's an argument not to draft Josh Jacobs, and all he does is produce. It doesn't excuse the year before, it excuse the year before that. Like, there's always some reason not to draft Josh Jacobs, and he continues to produce numbers.
We don't like to watch the production because it's scary. But yeah, running back 12, he had 15.1 points per game last year, like quietly, right? We all hated on this man.
It was very
running
quiet.
back 8. Oh,
Well,
I know.
He saw a lot of targets last year too.
Yeah,
last year he saw a career high in targets. And
after John Gruden was gone,
right.
They also had the need for it though with Waller and etc. He'll get less targets this year again. Probably relegated back to his old role.
Yeah, because Kenyon Drake got hurt too, and that kind of pushed him into getting some extra targets as well. So my fear this year, and just like I said, is that Josh Jacobs is going to be getting 12 to 15 carries per game, and if he doesn't score a touchdown, he is going to completely nuke your roster with 3.5, 4 points, and that's my fear with Josh Jacobs, is that he's going to be very touchdown dependent this year. The good news is Las Vegas is probably going to score a lot of touchdowns. They're probably going to have a lot of scoring opportunities, so he could certainly pay off there, and I can have an egg on my face a few months from now.
Well, that's why, too, you can make the argument to pick him over Gibson, because the offense is going to be better, more scoring opportunities.
Definitely better.
And there's no Brian Robinson on the Raiders.
Right.
Sorry. Next question comes in from Bougie, asking, who is this year's Mark Andrews?
Is Dalton Schultz? No, it's Dalton Schultz. I say Dalton Schultz would be it. Cole Kmet? No, that's a stretch. It's Dalton Schultz.
But no.
It's hard to say yet. Dallas Goedert's really, excuse me, not Dallas Goedert. Dalton Schultz is a good answer.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Pitts because I'm trying to remember.
It's too easy.
I thought you guys were letting me choose Pitts.
No, Pitts is too easy. I'm not gonna do bougie like that.
He's like the tight end 5 right now, or no? He's snuck up. He's getting drafted as tight end 3. But isn't that where Mark Andrews was getting drafted last year?
That's what I was gonna say.
Mark Andrews was getting drafted as a. It's not like Mark Andrews was some guy getting drafted in the 12th round. Like everybody was expecting a big season from Mark Andrews, and then he just exceeded expectations. And I think that's kind of where you can put Pitts in, maybe. Like people know he's going to be good, but I also don't think it would surprise. Well, it would surprise a lot of people. It wouldn't surprise me though if Pitts finishes as the overall tight end 1. Like if this guy draws 150 targets, gets in the end zone 10 or 12 times, he could finish as the tight end 1.
Gotta get in that end zone.
That's the tough thing.
He will this year.
I mean, we saw it for years with Julio in Atlanta. I mean, just putting up monster numbers and just allergic.
It's a Matt Ryan thing. It has to be because he just not giving these people touchdowns. I don't know.
I can't hear that, man. I got way too much exposure on Michael Pittman to be putting that energy out there.
Speaking of, let's go.
Next question comes in from Steve F. In a dynasty league with 5-year contracts, should I draft Michael Pittman or Drake London? I'm leaning towards Pittman.
Pittman easy for me.
Not easy. No,
that's a tough question. I think it's close. I'm leaning Pittman as well, but that's a tough one. Drake London is that dude. Drake London is good.
He's probably going to be great, but I've seen Pittman do it.
Yeah,
and he's only going to exceed. I think he's going to exceed all of our expectations.
What happens if everything hits for Drake London? He could be anything. He could be as good as Michael Pittman.
No, but
that's
kind of not.
But the thing about
the
thing about Atlanta, right? What I'm thinking, this is a scenario.
The thing about Atlanta.
The thing about Atlanta is that it's a 5-year contract. Atlanta is not going to be a good football team, which means they're going to have a high draft pick next year, and it's a very loaded QB class. So. And then with the Colts, I feel like Matt Ryan they're going to be good enough where I don't see them having a high draft pick. So I don't know where their QB situation is going to be for 5 years. I think Atlanta's going to have one of the top prospects next year. I'm factoring that in because I feel like Drake London isn't too far behind Pittman, right? If you have Pittman above him. So I actually like London in this scenario. No disrespect to Pittman, but I think I like London here.
I just saw you talk yourself out of your take, Troy. That was something.
I had to think about it, and then you know what? I'm going London. I had to think about it, but London.
London's ceiling is sky high. I mean, with what Chase and Jefferson have done over the last couple of years, I don't think there's anybody that's going to be able to come in and be the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. But we could it wouldn't surprise me one bit if at the end of this season we're talking about Drake London as a top 5 Dynasty wide receiver. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. It would Pittman would still take a pretty big step forward to get to that point. Next question comes in from PL02PL. What tidbit so far from training camp has altered one of your previous takes the most? I'll start off with this one. I'll just take my licks. Jamison Crowder, been beating the drum for him all offseason, and I am sweating right now with these reports of Isaiah McKenzie coming out, Jamison Crowder being hurt already. I'm nervous about it, and I'm not ready to completely pivot off of Jamison Crowder, but I have bumped him down a tad in my rankings. You two, what's the take that you've had to adjust on so far?
I mean, we hit on Antonio Gibson. The hamstring injury is a little worrisome to me because if Brian Robinson continues to take those reps with the ones, it's a little worrisome. I'm also kind of leading into questions that I asked as well in the chat. How are you feeling with him on the sideline? And Rivera had comments about Robinson being a good short yardage back. I'll answer that Rivera part. I don't trust anything Ron Rivera says ever. Fool me once. Shame on you. I've already said this nice J. Cole quote on the show before, but I can't listen to that man. He has comped Antonio Gibson multiple times to CMC and then refuses to use him like that. So I can't listen to him. But the worrisome part is the hamstring injury and Robinson getting reps.
I was gonna say what you said, Dave. Like Jamison Crowder thing is pretty worrisome right now. I mean, look, it just started. There's a lot of camp left, but like we talked about previously, you're in a new team. You're missing time. You got Khalil Shakir and you got Isaiah McKenzie, who been in, like, I know it's different offensive coordinator, but like, look, he's been in that system, right? So he has familiarity with the offensive coordinator in that system. Isaiah McKenzie might have an edge, so I'm a little bit worried about Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, we hit on Etienne and James Robinson earlier. Just James Robinson coming back much quicker than all of us really thought as well. So
that's another big one, yeah.
Yeah, curious to see if Etienne's ADP falls a bit with that news.
And I mean, it's funny. We sit here and preach. I am locked into underdog. I mean, I'm doing 10, 15 drafts a day.
We
like
know,
I watch,
Dave.
and it's just, we talk about not being overreactive, but some of the stuff that I've seen, like Isaiah McKenzie has an ADP outside of the top 200. I've seen him going in the 140s and 150s over the last few days. Meanwhile, I've seen Travis Etienne slipping from an early third round pick into the middle of the fourth round. It's wild the way people are overreacting. I drafted Russell Gage yesterday, who has an ADP in the 60s. I got him in the 110s. He slipped 50 spots past his ADP. So it's funny. Everyone sits here and preach, don't get overreactive and don't care too much about. But here we are midway through the first week of training camp, and people are already just throwing their priors out the window. Got one last question before we sign off here. This one comes in again from Mr. Scampers. Beer battered onion rings or thin crusted onion strings?
Thin crusted for me.
Big battered onion rings.
I'm gonna go with the onion rings as well, but I will say I ordered at this pizza place once in I can't remember, it was some mountain town out in Colorado, and it was a mix of onion strings and thinly sliced jalapeno strings, and they were mixed together. So you just kind of grab a handful of them like fries, and it was like a mix of onions and jalapenos, and those were pretty darn good.
I'm hungry now.
Wait, there's one more question we could end with quickly, I think, from Zara at the end.
Rank these wide receivers in redraft: Allen Lazard, Michael Thomas, Rashad Bateman. I'm going Lazard, Bateman, Thomas.
Me too. What?
I'm going Bateman, Lazard, Thomas.
Bateman before Lazard? No, I can't do that.
I'm doing Bateman. The problem is Michael Thomas could be excellent or I have no idea. I'm so done with Michael Thomas. And that's not good analysis. I'm sorry, but like he could be. We haven't seen this man play in 2 years, y'all. Like,
I have emotions. I'm allowed to be emotional every once in a while, and I do not want Michael Thomas on my team. I'm scared.
Me too.
I love this show.
All right, well, I think that'll do it. Wait, Vic, we didn't get yours. How are you ranking these people?
No, I think Lazard, Bateman, Thomas.
All right, so we're all in agreement there. We'll get that the.
No, I said Bateman first.
Yeah, well, that's your opinion. All right, guys. As always, this show is so much fun. Love linking up on Wednesday nights. Always a nice way to break up the week. Before we sign off, though, Victoria, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
At FFB_Victoria, Twitter and Instagram. Find me there.
Troy?
You can find me at T-King Mode pretty much on all social media platforms, but Twitter's my home base. Appreciate y'all.
And you can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguys, and we'll see you next week.